Yeah, Brad, you can do the honors.
Is it green?
Yep.
All right, first try. Ready?
First
ready.
try. Welcome into the banter, everyone.
Oh, it worked pretty well.
Yeah,
I mean, I only pressed it like 40 times in that
that's
second.
hey, it worked out.
I don't know.
Welcome into the banter. Trevor's at his beach week.
Throw me that remote real quick while you guys are talking.
What's wrong, man?
That's not what the green color is supposed to look like.
That's kind of like aqua-y.
Yeah.
I like it.
Keep going.
Okay, I was just saying, Trevor's at the beach this week. I was at the beach last week. Connor's at the beach next week. That's yellow.
And I'm at work.
That's aqua. That's off. There you go.
There we go.
Boom. Shake the room. Will Smith. I saw this crazy video last night of, I don't want to get back into animals because we always go into animals, I feel like, but I have to. It was two massive,
Animals are fun to talk about.
biggest grizzly bears. I think they're grizzly bears. Might have just been normal black bears. No, they were brown. They had to be grizzly bears to be this big.
There is a brown bear and a grizzly bear, just to clarify. But continue.
But this one, these were huge. Mm-hmm. And they got into a intense fight. It was a 10-minute long video. And I'm convinced now that a bear could kill any animal on the planet.
Bears are scary.
Yeah. They're scary. They're strong. They're relatively resourceful and
I'm
smart.
gonna find it. It literally looked like the bears were doing.
This podcast is gonna turn into an animal.
It literally looked like the bears were doing jiu-jitsu. Like they were putting holds on each other.
Yeah, I need to see that video. I need to see that video.
Let me see. Nick Merckx, I think, tweeted it.
Speaking of animals fighting, have you guys ever watched giraffes fight?
Yeah, where they just sling their necks around.
Yeah, how do they not
First
die?
off, there's the bear.
Know.
I'll just kind of skip to where they're fighting.
Yeah.
And this is when they're tired out.
Oh.
I mean, look at them. Look at this thing go.
Hunter,
pinned
send
his
it,
neck
airdrop
down.
it or text it to me. I want to see it.
Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna just show. Wait for it. Here we go.
Oh my gosh.
And they're massive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see when they first stood up. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, look at him. And then he gets into he literally does a takedown at some point.
That's crazy. Yeah, they're up on their hind legs.
Yeah,
just
they're
going
wild.
At it.
Here, Connor, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just had this conversation with my wife recently because we just got a large saltwater aquarium at our house, and I had to she gets really attached to the fish, and with fish you can get attached, but their lifespan can be all over the place, especially when you're getting a new saltwater tank.
Yeah.
Set up, but I was like, listen, and I told her our cute little clownfish, you can only really have 2 in a tank at a time because they're very territorial and aggressive. And she's like, they're little clownfish. They're Nemo. And I'm like, no, the animal kingdom is ruthless.
Yeah.
If you are taking food or you're hurt from another animal, you're gone. So, welcome to the banter.
Yeah, Animal Kingdom doesn't mess around, man.
No, I was talking.
Neither does the movie.
I heard that. I heard it on a podcast this morning because now I listen to a kayak fishing podcast. And
you're just getting more and more niche.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's very specific.
And he's I actually listen to guys that wear green and are all redheaded kayak fishing in Lynchburg streams, and it's just you.
Yeah.
It's just I just record voice memos for myself. Anyway, so he was talking about how so many people were commenting because he shot a video where he was kayaking and there was a beaver across the stream from him. And he said he got a ton of comments of people being like, dude, stay away from the beavers out there. They'll bite holes in your kayak.
Wow.
And then this one guy commented, I'm just kidding, he didn't comment. But there was a news story about a guy getting bit by a beaver and it going into an artery and he died.
Wow.
He got killed by a beaver. That's why I said he didn't comment, because he can't. He's dead.
How many beaver attacks a year do you think there are?
I don't know, but I sure can Google it.
I'm going to say 1,200.
12? Okay.
That's a lot.
How many deaths by beaver?
Death by beaver, 5 a year.
I was going to say, I think I'm going to say in America?
I'll go under.
In the U.S., I'm going 4.
Well, under 1,200 for sure.
Under 1,200 attacks.
Attacks, okay.
Under 1,200 attacks.
1,200 was ambitious.
But I'll go above 10 deaths.
Ooh. I'll Google it.
Yeah, let's Google that, because that's a great podcast on its own. How
attacks in the U.S., I'm going
over or under 1,200?
Under, and I'm thinking 600.
Okay.
And then deaths, I think.
This is U.S. only.
What do they
US
consider a beaver death?
What you just
Like
described.
getting bit by. Then I'm gonna.
On the death certificate, it says cause of
year?
death, beaver.
3.
Yeah. I'm saying above 10.
Wow. This is way lower than we ever would have thought.
I don't
thought
agree
it was.
with that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but okay.
Based on this guy's research, Woodard said there's been 11 attacks by beavers on people in North America over the last 10 years. So it's like
Wow.
one attack a year, and one beaver attack on a human is known to have been fatal, and that was the fisherman you just told us about.
Oh,
That's the only one.
Well,
Okay. Well, hey,
then
here's a statistic.
beavers are not that dangerous.
And he died back in 2013.
No.
Wow.
They are dangerous because about 10%, if you have a 10% chance of dying if you're attacked by a
True.
beaver.
That's a good.
About, like an 8.5% chance.
That's a good point.
That's a high probability.
So
That is a high
beavers are
probability.
not dangerous if left alone. However, they will stand their ground and confront a threat. So if trapped or cornered, a beaver will attack a human.
Dude, I kind of want to get attacked by a beaver.
You have an 8.5% chance of dying.
I
if you
kind of
do.
want to get attacked by a beaver.
I don't know if my math's right. That's going to bother me.
I think that I want to wear one of those
9%
dog suits.
chance.
You know those dog suits where they let the dogs attack you? Mm-hmm. I think I want to wear one of those and get attacked by a beaver. I think that sounds like a good time.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, the
Well,
article.
not a good time, an interesting time.
The article in 2013 said man tries to take picture of beaver, it kills him. That was the headline I
I
just
got
saw.
straight to the chase in 2013.
Yeah, they
Wow.
didn't mess around.
2013, things were so different back then.
I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
Then I was a freshman in high school, right?
I don't know.
I don't either. Yes,
I just know I graduated in 2015.
because I'm 1 year. I graduated in 2017, but I went to a 5-year high school.
Okay, here we go.
Wait, so then that makes
That's what they call it when we get held back. I'm just kidding. I didn't get held. That's
Wait,
actually
but then
my
if you were
school.
only 1 year behind me in college,
You went to college for I went to college late because I went to a 5-year high school.
you weren't 1 year behind me in college.
No, I wasn't.
That was where the math all got messed up.
Yeah,
in my head.
well,
You were 2 or 3 years behind me in college.
something like that.
It had to be.
I don't know.
Because if you graduated high school 2 years after me, and then you went to college late, you
Yeah.
had to be a freshman when I was a senior.
Because I'm like 1 year younger than you, ish.
Yeah.
And then I also
What
was
year
another
did
year
you-
behind you in school because of
What year did you start
high school.
college?
I don't know.
Like what year were you a freshman?
I have no idea.
Dang.
I don't remember years. Everybody's always like, well then yeah, back in 2012 we moved here and
I'm the
I have
same
no
way.
I have no idea what year anything happened. I know around what age I was. I know what style hat I wore at that time.
Okay, what style hat did you wear your freshman year?
Of what?
College.
Freshman year of college, I was wearing big brim fedoras.
Okay, and how old were you when you were wearing big rim fedoras?
Probably
I like how you're backing
19.
into this date.
Probably 19.
19, and what year were you born?
I was born in 1998.
98. So you were 19 in 2017. So you went into college
2018 probably.
2018, which would have been my junior year.
No, because I graduated high school in 2017. So
So
yeah.
then you didn't take.
So that logic's pretty close with the whole hat thing.
You took like a year off. You took like a year off, and you went in 2018, which means you would have finished your freshman year in 2019, which that was my senior year. That's when I graduated, was 2019. So yeah,
Okay.
you entered
No,
college.
not true. Because I wasn't on the disc golf team my freshman year.
Okay, then you didn't take a year off.
I did not take a year off. I don't know where you got that from.
You told me that you took time off. You went to college late.
No, I went to college late because I went to a 5-year high school. So I
Oh,
went to college
okay.
later than a normal high school.
Well, we could have just done the math off of your graduating year then, Connor.
Well, that's why I was confused why you were looking into it so
Because you
much.
said you went to college late. So I was like, how did this dude take a year off and end up in college the same time as me? Okay, we found it.
No, I didn't really graduate high
Grind
school.
until you find it.
I didn't really graduate high school.
Is that serious or a joke?
It's kind of serious. I've never walked at a graduation before. Well, I didn't graduate college. I could have walked though. Anyway, and just not graduated because a ton of people do that in college. But you can't, because if you like technically like if it looks like you're gonna finish those credits
Yes.
like right
You can,
after,
like, go
then
ahead
you
and
can just
walk.
go to walk,
Yeah.
but then not
That makes
finish.
sense.
Which is funny. But I in high school, so I went to, it was an early college, so the whole time I'm taking like just high school classes my freshman year of high school, but then after that it was almost majority college classes that those college credits also count for your high school credits. So I like went into college with basically a what's the degree with 2 years? Associate's degree. Yep. That's the point of this high school is you graduate with an associate's degree. I didn't graduate with an associate's degree because I didn't take one class because my super senior year of high school, my second semester, I just stopped going to all my classes because I didn't want to go anymore and they were stupid. And also my now wife, we had broken up that year, and then I was like, I just want to play disc golf. I don't want to do anything. And so I would just sometimes in order to make it look like I was going to class, because I was too embarrassed to tell my parents that I was skipping class, so I would drive to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, sleep in the parking lot, and then drive home whenever my class was supposed to be over. But I was too embarrassed to go to class because I'd missed so many classes. I didn't want to walk into the room and the teacher be like, where the frick have you been? And that just is a part of my personality. It's a very flawed trait of mine.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then...
Why didn't you just go to the disc golf course at 8 a.m.?
I should have, because there was a disc golf course on the property.
Now you could have just played around and been done around the time your class would have been done.
Well,
and
instead, what I would do was my friend Caleb would stay over at my house. I would leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, go sleep in the parking lot for an hour and a half, drive home. Then me and Caleb would go play disc golf the entire day.
So all your schooling that you needed to do was just an hour and a half class in the morning?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
And you just skipped it?
Well, I stopped. Okay, so I stopped going because I know I was looking at my transcript and I knew that I was going to Liberty, that I was going to college, and I also knew that this class, or there's probably some other classes going on, I don't know, and they were not transferable to Liberty, so they were not. And I already had my high school diploma, so these classes.
So you'd already graduated high school.
I'd already graduated high school and everything, and so. I stopped going for a few weeks.
This just stopped you from your associate's degree.
Exactly, which my associate's degree didn't mean anything because I was going to college anyway. So then my...
Debatable.
Then my...
well, you would at this point have an associate's degree.
I would, yes.
And also, you don't have a bachelor's degree.
I do not have a bachelor's degree, no.
So it would have meant something when it was all said and done.
Well, also, nobody at that school called your parents at all and said, hey, this kid's not coming to class?
Well, no, I got an email. Well, I got an email.
I'm just really confused where the administration was.
Well, they're college classes, so the college classes didn't call your parents. So I just ended up getting an email from my high school that was like, hey, we need to meet with you. And I went to the office. They're like, hey, you can't go to school here anymore because you're not going to classes. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. All right, bye. And then I never went back. I didn't walk at graduation. I never talked to anybody there ever again. I see teachers every once in a while. They all think that I'm they probably think that I just dropped off the face of the earth or something. But then I saw one a month later, and she was like, what are you doing now? Are you still at Chick-fil-A? But the way that she asked that question was not in a polite way. She was mainly saying, so you're just going to work at Chick-fil-A the rest of your life? And then I was like, nope, I just got into Liberty. So I'm going to Liberty. And then I was like, yeah, suck it. And then basically the same thing happened in college. I didn't feel like finishing that either, so I just stopped going.
And I'm fascinated.
I don't think I want to talk about this anymore.
I'm fascinated by this school more than anything, just because how did the school give you a high school diploma if the point is to dual enroll to graduate at the same time?
I just had all my high school credits. I don't know. I don't know what happened. All I know is I got into college.
That's
and
fair.
my college GPA at the time that I got into college was a 1.7 because guess what? I failed every class my last year because I didn't go.
You go. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Let me back up. Let me back up and ask a question.
I don't think I want to talk about it anymore because I think I just showed way too much. That was a really dark part of my life that I completely forgot about until I started talking about it.
I'm just was this a private school that you had to pay to attend?
No, it was not.
Now I'm really confused. Okay, we can move on if you want.
I did a similar thing dual enrollment wise with my school I went to, my high school. My junior and senior year, you could elect to take online college classes and get double credit. So I essentially, my junior year, I took 2 classes at the school I went to. I had the first period, and I had a 4th period class. And that was it. I think it was, I took math and chemistry my junior year, I believe it was. I think it was pre-cal and chemistry. And that was all I took at the school. everything else, like English, history, all of that stuff, I took online through, it was literally just like gen ed stuff for college, like just 100 level classes. So I just went ahead and took that stuff, and it got me both credits. So I'd go into school at 8 a.m., have my first class, then I'd go to the library, do all of my schoolwork for the week on Monday, because online college is a joke, if you haven't found that out. I went to online, I did all of my college online because I figured out in high school, I can sit down, do all of my work for the week on Monday, and then I'm a week ahead, technically, and I don't have to do anything till the next Monday. So I just went to school online and worked through it, because why the heck not? So I would do that. So Monday I would do it, all my work for the week, and then the rest of the week I just had 2 hours in the library. So I got really good at Rubik's Cubes and Tetris my junior year. And then I would go to my fourth period class, which was right before lunch. And then I would sometimes I'd eat lunch with my friends. Sometimes I'd just get lunch on my way home, and I was home by like 12 o'clock every day. It was fantastic. Played my whole basketball year, my junior year. We get to the playoffs, and our administrator, I think, was also my basketball coach at the time, because he was like the interim administrator. I believe that was this year. And he walked up to me and goes, "Hunter, you leave at 12 every day, don't you?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "But don't I see you in a study hall?" I was like, "Yeah, I have 2 study halls, second and third period are study halls, and I leave after fourth period." He goes, "So how many classes are you taking here?" I said, 2. He's like, "You can't play basketball." I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I've been playing all year." He's like, "You have to take 4 classes here to play basketball here." Yikes. And I was like, "Well, I'm not. So you can't tell me what to do." He's like, "Well, if we kick you off the team, then the whole season's like, we're disqualified. We shouldn't be in the playoffs." He's like, "But then if I let you play, we also will be disqualified, not in the playoffs." I was like, "Look, I'll do whatever you tell me to do." Like I at this point,
you're like, I'm not trying to cheat anything.
I was like, "You let me create this schedule. Like, I literally worked with the school staff here, and you let me on the basketball team. So like, you tell me what to do." And he was like, "We'll just turn down the trophy if we win." And I was like, "That sounds fair. That's fine." We didn't win. We got knocked out of the first round, so it didn't matter.
Just to be clear, I went to this school not because I was a productive person, obviously, as you can tell by my work ethic in school. I went to the school purely because I hated my middle school, and I refused to go to the high school that was attached to my middle school, and so I went to this school instead.
Makes sense.
You sort of went to that school.
Yeah, you went for 4 years.
I went 4 years. Yeah,
that's true.
I only went because because my parents wouldn't homeschool me.
In 8th grade, I had an awful experience with I think it was my 8th grade science teacher. I had one awful teacher in 8th grade, and I was gonna have her again in 9th grade, I believe, or something along those lines. And so I was telling my parents, I'm like, I don't want to take this class. So my parents were looking into homeschooling for just that class, because they were like, well, maybe you can just like do it online and whatever. It was like the early online school was becoming more prevalent my like 8th grade year. But it wasn't like super popular yet. Like nowadays, I feel like if you tell someone you're homeschooled, it just means you do school online, is what I would think.
Yeah.
Back then, that wasn't the case. Most of my homeschool friends went to like co-ops, which is basically like you're going to school. But they were like looking like, maybe we can have you do it online. I think I might have even went online for 8th grade science, and I was doing it, and then I was like, "Mom, can I just be homeschooled? Like, can I just do all of this? I can play for the homeschool basketball team." And like, because again, the way I'm a very like self-taught person. So if I sit in class and a teacher teaches me, I'm not going to learn it till I do it. And online school was all, you just have to do it because like no one's sitting there teaching you. So I learned with online classes really quickly, and I could work at my own pace, which meant it ended up in college being kind of a bad thing, because you could do the math on how many points you needed to get a B. And then I would just do that amount of work. Right. And once I got my B, I just wouldn't. I the last like 3 or 4 weeks of every class, I just didn't do, or 2 weeks, some of them, because unless it was like my 400 level classes in college where my entire grade was like on my final project, then yeah. But most of them, I would just like get to like 3 weeks left and be like, do the math. Okay, I have a 90, which is an A if I stop right now. So why do I need to keep going? Yeah. I got an A.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I was happy. I mean, I think I was on the dean's list or whatever that thing was called that means nothing. Once you get outside of college, you realize how little college meant. when it's all said and done.
Yeah, or school, unless it's really applicable to what you want to do.
Well, my problem was I thought that while I was in college.
Yeah. Well, I thought what was weird was in college, just my sophomore year, I was going to college for graphic design. Sophomore year, I started doing freelance graphic design, and I was doing that while I was working at the coffee shop, my brother's coffee shop. Junior year is when foundation started, and I was doing a lot more freelance social media work, and I was still doing freelance graphic design. And so by my senior year of college, I was doing full-time freelance graphic design. I was married, and Liz and I had already bought a house. And I was like chilling there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to finish school just to get my degree. But like at that point, I had pushed all the classes I didn't want to do to my senior year. Mm-hmm. So all that was left basically was web development classes. And I had like one internship I had to do. And like that was it. And none of it was pertinent to what I wanted to do with my life. And so I was like, this is because I also took no marketing classes, and that's what I ended up liking the most was my social media work. And I just taught myself all of that on YouTube.
Right.
I think it was important for me to go to college because the basics of Illustrator, Photoshop, and like a lot of like technical stuff with graphic design, I would have never, and like the reason why I do things in graphic design, like the theory behind it, I would have never went out and learned myself. So it like forced me to learn kind of like why design works the way it does, which helps me understand why design is going to work new ways in the future. And I think that could be a struggle with AI in the future, but regardless, it helped me understand all of that. But practical day-to-day use-wise, no, college was pointless.
Yeah.
I went. Okay, talk about dumb like college decisions or whatever. I got into like pre-med school, and I had a full ride, and I turned it down and went to another school and got into a bunch of debt. So that was my dumb mistake.
Nice.
So that was fun.
You could be Dr. Brad right now.
Yeah, I'd have been a veterinarian.
fun.
That's what I was doing. That was my track. So biomed, that was what I was doing. So I would have been miserable. I would have hated it. So good choice for me. But at the time, I mean, if I'm looking from like at the time, was it a dumb decision? It was a very dumb decision. But I think the cool part about college, I've always been someone that likes to learn a little bit about everything, and it like kind of gave me a chance to like mess around in a couple different areas. Like I did do pre-med and pre-vet for a while. It was cool. I got to learn a bunch of stuff about animals and biology and zoology, which, as you can tell from my topics on here, I like. And then I did music education for a while, so I got to learn about like teaching and like leadership and stuff like that. That's really cool. And then I did audio engineering and business, which again, I was running my own businesses when I started doing business, so it was really applicable. So I learned a lot of, I guess, like traditional business things there. And then I like when I got into corporate America, then those kind of really molded into like some like real life things. But I did have like a little bit of a basis that helps. So I would always recommend someone go to college if there's really something that's like driving you to like that you really want to do. But I also think there's so many resources out there, especially like I'm like kind of the opposite of you. Like I like absorb like through osmosis kind of. So like as much as stuff as I can put in front of me visually or in my ear, like that's how I'm going to learn like the quickest. So even like in the warehouse, if I'm like just grinding on a task over there, I'll put in an audiobook in one ear and I'll actually watch a video as well. And like I can, for whatever reason, the way my brain works, I can tell you everything that happened on the video, everything I'm listening to on this podcast or audiobook, and get the task done that I need to do.
Yeah,
but
I can't do that. I suck at
But
multitasking.
if you sit here and like talk at me, I will retain zero of what you said.
Interesting.
So it's just something interesting I'm learning. But I'm really jealous. Like so my youngest Eli, my wife was just texting me. He went to, obviously during COVID and everything was all virtual. And both of my kids really excelled with virtual school. And what I liked about it is it gave them like, they were learning, you know, at the time they were in 2nd and 4th grade. They were learning like foreign languages already. They were starting to learn about like coding, and they're doing STEM, like stuff you wouldn't do in traditional in-person school. And they were excelling. And then even through their testing and stuff this year, this was our 2nd year back in like traditional in-person school. They both, Cohen tested 2 grade levels ahead, and Eli tested 3, and they just kind of stopped after testing it there. So I credit a lot of that to like the learning there, but Eli learns a lot like me. He likes like the visual audio. Cohen which is my oldest, he is better in an in-person environment. So he's really doing well in school now, but we're re-enrolling Eli in virtual school this year. He requested it, actually. He's like, I can focus better. I learn more. He's like, I want to learn Chinese. Like, that's an option they have. He's like, I want to learn to code. That's an option they have. And he's going to be in 4th grade. And so, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'd rather him have those skills and like get done. And he's the same way. He's like, I have my like in-person classes I do or virtual classes. And then I know what my assignments are. I can just get them done. And then I'm done at like 1 o'clock and I can go like run around outside.
Yeah.
Which is what he needs to do. So I think now like the resources are out there, like virtual school, and like the way they have it structured. I mean, they spend a lot of FaceTime or like, they do Zoom, but they spend a lot of time Zooming, like 3 or 4 hours of that school time, which is really good. And they're, instead of like giving them piles of homework, they're like doing the work with them, leading them through it in class, which I think is great. So I think that's one really good thing that came out of like the pandemic is like that, like the art of virtual school. Really, they've perfected it, at least the one that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think there's just so many resources that people can learn so much and in different ways. I think that's the important thing to realize is people learning in different ways.
Yeah.
So
that's what, if my parents would have listened to me in 8th grade and put me all online, I think it would have been great for my schooling level. Like, I think I probably would be able to tell you that Iowa and Idaho aren't right next to each other, but my social skills as far as like, actual like face-to-face interaction would have never developed
because that's a huge part of school as well.
Yeah. And I was, so through 8th grade, like I had friends on the basketball team, but I was like a 1 or 2 friend guy, and I didn't bleed into any other friend groups. Like, that was it. And I was happy with that. Like, it wasn't like I went to school and I felt lonely. Like, I'm still this way. I like being alone. And it's a tough part with Lizzie's the exact opposite. So like there's some days where like if I've been, for instance, when we just went out of town for 2 weeks, I'm around people nonstop. I tried, and every morning I would get away and like read and do my own thing. But like I got home, and what I needed to relax and recharge is like I need a few hours at least of be just like by myself.
Oh my god!
But I was just away from my wife for 2 weeks.
Right.
So there was like a weird balance. But like that's just my personality. So 8th grade, like through 8th or 9th grade, I was happy as could be, but I wasn't a super social person. I didn't have a ton of friends. I didn't want a ton of friends. 9th grade, I literally got mono. Missed school from, I got mono in December. I didn't come back till March or late February. And during that time frame, I like was doing online school, and again, I was excelling a lot. I was doing great. I loved the fact, even though I had mono, I could still get all my work done in like a day. And then I would play video games with my brother all the time. It was fantastic. But I literally had like one person reach out to me and be like, "Hey man, what's going on? Like, notice you haven't been at school." And it wasn't like a sad thing. I just like in 9th grade, I started like having awareness. I'm like, I probably should try to make some friends. Cause like, I mean, I'm chilling here, and my brother's about to go to college, or he might already been in college. My sister was in college for years now. She might have even been going to med school. Like, I was a very much family person. So like, I loved playing board games with my brother, my dad, all of that. But I'm like, I'm not going to have them in a few years. And so when I went back to school, I like pushed myself to get out of my shell a little bit. And 9th grade, I found like 3 or 4 really good friends. One of them at the time was my best friend, which is now my wife, Lizzie. In 9th grade, into 10th grade, we became like best friends. And then she is like, she'll talk to a brick wall, which was exactly the person I needed, because because
sometimes you're a brick wall.
She was friends with everyone. I was friends with no one. And when you're friends with no one, you're kind of reserved. Like at the time I was doing magic, I was juggling. Like I was the weird kid. There is through and through. It wasn't like a stigma. Like I was the weird kid. I just happened to play basketball. That was my only redeeming quality.
Yeah.
But I had a personality. Like I mean, obviously now you can see with like YouTube and stuff, like I was at home, I would like sing, dance. I was fun, outgoing, but I had a really thick shell to be broken out of. Lizzie didn't give 2 fricks about a shell. She would just throw me into like me and her. I got really comfortable with her even before we started dating. So I was like cracking jokes, my, satire. I realized of like, oh, people actually think that's funny. My like, quicker response humor and
quips.
Yeah, sure. And she found that hilarious, and so then would like put me into social situations that I was uncomfortable with and expect me to like make everyone laugh because like I make her family laugh or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so then that broke me out of my shell, and come senior year, I would legitimately say I was friends with everyone in our class. And so like I had some type of relationship with everyone in our class and most of the class below me because I had been broken out of my shell. That would have never happened had I went online. But online, what it did was like those years of me being able to work online with my dual enrollment thing taught me how to teach myself, to where when I went into the classes, and some of the classes, yeah, it was pointless. I was like, the frick am I taking calculus for? I literally dropped out of calculus my senior year because I'm like, I'm just doing this to get a math credit that I'm not going to need, because at the time I was going to be a biblical theological studies major. I just needed gen ed math. And then I was thinking about going to graphic design, also not a math heavy major. So either way, I was like, I don't need this AP calculus credit. So I dropped out of it.
And also calculus is for the devil.
Oh, okay. Pre-cal was just algebra. Literally pre-cal was college algebra. I got to algebra in college, and they used the same book as my pre-cal in high school. So I already had all the homework done. It was fantastic. It was great. Also, fortunate. Wolfram Alpha gets you through it. Anyways, the
a little weird shout out.
Have you ever used it?
No.
Oh, if you ever have to take a math class ever again.
I didn't have to take a math class in college because I technically have the credit covered. So
you could.
I don't remember taking the class in high school. But
you could
I'm
plug
sure I did
in
at some point.
This program. Surely it's been shut down by now, but maybe not. You could plug in whatever algebra pre-cal problem and like solve for X or whatever, and it would not only tell you the answer but show you all the work of how it got there. A good student would use that to learn how it got there.
Yeah.
A bad student...
So you just leave it there.
A bad student who's not going to do any math in their future would be like, I have all the work and the answer. Yeah. Boom. Which luckily for me, I was good at algebra. So by the time I got to college algebra, I didn't do it.
My struggle is that
I don't even know where that story started or where it was going, but
I think
it was good for me in the end because I learned to teach myself, and now I can even apply it to my reading. I have like different types of reading. I have reading where this is a fun-ish book. I don't really care how much information I retain, or I really want to retain this information. And information I really want to retain, the only way I can do that with reading is to write it down after. So like if I read something, I'm like, oh, that line's good, I have to write it. Once I write it, it's in me.
That story started because you were talking about how the social aspect of school.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what also was crucial when I got to college. The best thing college did for me was the disc golf team. Because again, I went online. I was working at the coffee shop. Loved the baristas I worked with at the coffee shop. Not my vibe though. Like I am not your typical specialty coffee guy by any means. I am not a hipster. And so all the people I worked with are hipsters. Cool, very, very cool people. But our interests outside of coffee did not align. Music-wise, I loved sports. None of them watched sports. It was not they would wear, this is still a trendy thing today, but like they'd come in like a sick, like vintage Miami Dolphins shirt or something. Like, oh, you like the Dolphins? What? I'm like, you sure?
What's that?
Like, oh, no, man. Dolphins. Like, I just saw this at Goodwill. I thought it was sick.
Yeah, I just really like dolphins.
Yeah, like no, I saw it at Goodwill. It was a sick shirt. And I was like, yeah, it is a sick shirt, but so you're not a Dolphins fan? Like, okay, I thought we had something at least. I'm not a Dolphins fan either, but.
Something that my problem with education is that I'm a very practical learner. Not in the sense to where everything I learn is practical, because there's a lot of really useless knowledge that I have. A lot of really useless knowledge. Probably 80% of it is useless knowledge. But I also like
beaver attacks.
Exactly.
Kayaks,
yes. Yeah. My dad used to be a pastor, and he once described me as a walking bundle of useless knowledge. Because one time there was, we walked into the church building, and on top of the stage, there was a scissor lift lifted all the way up to the top with no one on it. And everybody's like, how are we going to get that down? And then I leaned underneath it, and I was like, oh, there's like a knob down here that you just pull. And I leaned underneath it, and I grabbed it, and I pulled it. This is whenever I was in high school, or maybe middle school, actually. And it like all the way down. And he was like, how'd you know that? And I was like, well, last week I was just reading the manual for it. But I'm like very much like a person that like, I really retain stuff if it's something I need to know at the time. Like, I don't store a lot of information for the future. I'm like, anytime someone asks me if I know how to do something, the answer is yes, not because I know how to do it, but because I'll do it and I'll figure it out while I'm doing it, and I have YouTube. No one does. I don't think anyone doesn't know how to do something because you have YouTube. I realize there's techniques to things, but you can figure anything out. So that's why I struggle with school so much. Is like whenever we were learning, anything math, I was like, this just does not apply to me in the slightest at all. This is nowhere. I always knew from whenever I could talk that I was going to be a musician, and that worked out. But maybe I should have done some more math. I'm just kidding. So I just knew that none of that stuff ever applied to me. But then I got to college. The only thing that I really, really paid attention to in college was my private vocal lessons, because it really applied to me. Because guess what? I sang every day, and it made me better to be in those lessons. So it's like, that's why, like, whenever I get into kayak fishing, I retain a ton of it. I could tell you about so many different kinds of fishing kayaks, but it's because I'm really interested in it right now. And right now, I could tell you a lot about crawl spaces because there's something funky happening in my crawl space. And so I'm reading a ton of articles on like ventilation and crawl spaces and stuff like that. It's just, I just can't sit in a classroom and have you tell me something that I don't care about.
I think the important parallel in math is what it does is it gives you a problem, and you have to, like, there's a bunch of different ways you can solve it, or one specific way. It teaches you to, like, I guess, pun intended, problem solve in life and other situations, not just like, oh, what is X here? But I think there's like a parallel that teaches you to creatively problem solve or practically problem solve other issues. And again, even with like your crawl space and things like that, there's going to be like some practicality that you're going to have, and problem solving you're going to have to do. So I think like any like advanced science or math, that's probably the point, is like to exercise that part of your brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a difficult problem to solve.
That's why it's important for like development and stuff.
That's what I always excelled at math, not because I was good at math simply because I saw it as a puzzle. And I love Sudoku. I love puzzles. And so algebra always made sense. That's why once we got to calculus and stuff, it stopped making sense, because then it started getting away from, okay, you have a problem in front of you and we're just trying to solve it. And there were all kinds of, now I have to memorize all these formulas and stuff. And it became more like a game and less like you just have a problem, go solve it.
Yeah.
And once it got outside of the basic PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, once it got beyond that, I was like, bruh, I'm not trying to solve for the square root of freaking pi or whatever.
Yeah, I think when you get into like so I was the kid, I took advanced calculus, I took AP chemistry.
I did do AP chemistry. Organic chemistry is a great time.
Oh, I loved that. Yeah. I had the best chemistry teacher in the entire world, I'm convinced. He was a professor at Wake Forest, and then he moved back to our little dinky area for some reason, I think for his wife's family or something like that. And him and his wife never had any kids. He just had a heart for kids and like learning. And I tested out for my pre-med. I tested out of all 4 years of chemistry because of everything he taught us in
That's
2
crazy.
years in high school.
That's crazy.
Like he had us make this thing. It was like a, I forget what he called it. It was like a notebook of all of every single element on the periodic table. A bunch of different like facts about it. Its electron configuration chart. Like we had to do this as a big project, and like the way he taught was like pretty amazing. I forget where I was going with that at all.
Welcome to the banter.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of love for this teacher specifically. Like he wasn't like that. Like he wasn't like he comes in and he's like, oh, he's in like a suit and he's like shooting balloons off. He's not like that kind of teacher. He was like a very like professor-ish teacher, and he expected a lot out of you. But I function well with people like that. Like they're fun. They can be fun and like people, but they like have high expectations for you. And he was kind of like that. So he was just an extremely, extremely good teacher.
Because I made it sound like
shout out Mr. Bragg if you're listening.
What is it?
Bragg.
Mr. Bragg, yeah.
Heck yeah,
2
Mr.
G's.
Bragg. Well, we should send him something.
But he still teaches. No, actually, he doesn't there. So it's sad story of someone taking advantage of a situation.
Oh.
I'm going to share this, okay?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to run over.
No, that's fine.
No, it was just unfortunate. He was doing obviously he was one of the few chemistry teachers that were still doing like actual chemistry in the classroom. And he was not afraid to jump into some like chemicals and things and elements that are maybe like a little hazardous. Again, He was tough. He was pretty strict. He was like everyone in there. By the time you're in like AP chemistry, you knew how to handle stuff that was dangerous. Mm-hmm. And a couple kids were like just messing around in the class, and someone knocked over a beaker and a chemical splashed on this girl. Nothing happened to her, perfectly fine, but her parents saw like an opportunity to sue the school and it was just so bad for him that he was kind of forced to resign. Versus
sucks.
And literally best human, best guy, like not a like harmful, like hateful, harmful bone in his body. And someone just took an advantage of that situation, try to make a quick buck, and very sad. Very sad.
That sucks. Well, I was gonna say that one thing I realized was I don't only just learn off of things that I want to learn. One thing that makes me really passionate about something is whenever somebody's really passionate about it. I realized that lately, that anytime anyone gets really excited about something, I love it, because like I just like to see people passionate about stuff. And so that's why like Hunter's interest, I've become interested in. Trevor's interest, I've become interested in. Brad, like you talk about things, and it makes me so interested in them. Like,
I love math.
Just the people.
Oh,
that's a good point. No, but like it's just like and it's just because I really love seeing people get passionate about stuff, and it makes me passionate about it. And so the people that I'm around, like I'll want to be involved in what they're doing, because like I like how it makes them happy, and so like it makes me really interested in stuff like that. And so that makes it like, if I had that professor, I would probably be all about that, because like just seeing someone who respects it so much, I would think that's so cool. But also I wanted to say one more thing. I didn't want to just leave it at I suck at school and I think it's all stupid and I did bad in it and this is how I am now.
That's a podcast. We'll see you.
See you later. Because
Someone
I just want to
clip
be,
that.
because I know that there are parents who let their kids listen to this podcast. I just want to make sure that I get another message out there, and that is that there are a lot of problems I have because of the way I disrespected school. And if anything, my hatred for school taught me how to ignore doing things I don't like to do. And so like I'm realizing something in my life right now as an adult is I'm having to figure out ways to give myself discipline, to force myself to do things I don't like to do, because I've trained myself all the way through school to just don't go to class if I don't like going to class, and like all this stuff. And it just turned me into a person that if I get home from being at work all day and then my wife asks me to take out the trash, this is a very like stereotypical like situation described, but she asked me to take out the trash, very normal task, then I can become grumpy because I had an expectation that I want to go home and do nothing, and now I take out the trash, and that's because I've ignored things I don't like to do. And so now I have to find a way to discipline myself to get myself into a person that is able to do things I don't like to do. So please stay in school.
No, I think the biggest thing is make sure that you understand what your learning style is. If you can understand that, you can do pretty much anything you want to do because you understand how you need to learn and retain information. And also you have to understand what your bandwidth is. Like, what is your bandwidth to, and everybody's bandwidth is going to be different every single day. And you just have to, like, when you start being self-aware of like what is my bandwidth for today, you can start, becoming more productive. But also that doesn't mean you're limited to your bandwidth. Like for you, for instance, like if you're like coming home and you're like, I don't want to do anything, your bandwidth is probably met for the day. You didn't set the right expectation that like, hey, I need to reserve some because when I get home today, like I'm a husband and my wife is going to ask me for love, affection, attention, and then also probably X, Y, Z task.
Yeah.
So I think you have to really, that's something I'm learning now, just through some other things that I'm reading and learning about. So I think if you can understand your bandwidth and your learning style, it like can take you, if you feel plateaued, or even if you're like in school still or whatever and feel plateaued, or you're in life, I think those skills can like help you kind of elevate and maybe get to some goals you're having trouble reaching. I think that's really, this has become like a very like informational, like motivational into this podcast. So that's pretty funny.
I think you have to figure out what it is that fills you up. Like, because I think a really important like thing as a person, like what I was describing, and I wish I'd learned this earlier in life, is being okay with doing things you don't want to do. And that's why I think it's good to figure out the most efficient way for you to learn. It's good for you to figure out what you enjoy doing in life, and it's good for you to figure out ways to enjoy things. But I also think it's good for you just to suck it up and do things you don't like doing.
Yeah.
And so like I think that with school and stuff like that, yes, you need to figure out the right way for you to learn. But if there's just a class that doesn't give you that option, just take it as a challenge to practice doing something you don't like to do. But also, if you only do things you don't want to do all day, you're going to just get run dry as a person and probably be miserable to be around. So you have to also find out what fills you up and gives you energy as well and add that in as well.
And if there's any like younger people listening to this podcast, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Like that's the biggest like failure our society's doing for people, in my opinion, is like it's okay if you're in 11th grade and you do not know what you want to do.
It's okay if you're 25 and you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah. Look at me. Like
I knew exactly what I wanted to do my whole life. I knew exactly what I wanted to do until the month after I got a job at Foundation. The month after I got a job at Foundation, it changed everything I was going to do.
Did you plan on being a video and an editor and
absolutely not?
Did you plan on owning a disc golf company?
I planned on owning a marketing agency. Actually, first I planned on being a youth pastor.
Yeah.
I was going to be Robbie C.
Yeah.
I planned on being in a tour bus.
Yeah. I thought I was going to be a vet. I thought I was going to be a music teacher. I thought I was going to be an audio engineer. I thought I was going to be a session musician. I thought I was going to be a business owner. Okay, check. I did that one. But, I thought I was going to be, whatever in corporate America for 30 years. Like, it's okay. I'm 33 and, here we are. I'm at a
But
disc
it's
golf
also
company.
not because we all just like got stuck at a dead end job that like because we couldn't make it in something else.
No,
it's because
movement's okay. Like failure's okay.
We were
Movement's
offered
okay.
something in our life that we feel like that we actually ended up being more fulfilling,
But I would have never taken this like opportunity if like I wasn't just open to doing something else or like, hey, like this is not the path of my life I have to do for 30 years. I can do something else, you know, even if it's not what I thought I was going to do. Like that's okay. And hey, it's worked out pretty good. Having a lot of fun. We're on the banter right now.
That's true.
Yeah. No, I think there's so much pressure because I'm even witnessing it with my sister-in-law right now. She went to school, didn't know what she wanted to do, so she just picked a major. She picked accounting that she felt would pay her well when it was done, which that's a true statement.
Huge mistake.
But now she's a junior. She just got engaged. Shout out to Katie.
What up?
But she's realizing like she doesn't even like math. Mm-hmm. And so she's switching. I think she's switching to like business and marketing, which makes way more sense. She's a creative person. Mm-hmm. And I told her that a while ago. I'm like, you're not going to like accounting. But again, you feel like you need to go to college, so you do. Yeah. Then when you're at college, you don't know what you want to do. So you're like, well, I might as well make this worth my while. So you pick something you feel like is going to pay well. Mm-hmm. And then if you get stuck there and you ride with it, then you graduate and you're like, well, I have this degree. So your two options are, well, you got to get a job to get your student loan payments going. So you either get a job in your degree field that you don't like and be miserable the rest of your life. And yeah, you might make a good paycheck, but money's not going to make you happy. Or you end up getting a job that just pays the bills and you're miserable too because you're also not fulfilled by working at Target. And yeah, you might be getting $18 an hour or whatever they pay now, but it's not a very fulfilling thing when, you might be someone who wanted to do a more creative thing, but you got stuck in that. And like, that's what I really respect the crap out of my wife. Lizzie, she graduated high school, no idea what she wanted to do. Her parents, as all parents do, were pressuring her to go to school. Nothing wrong with it. So she ended up going, she's like, well, I'm not going to waste my money and get a bunch of student debt to go to Liberty. I'm just going to go to CVCC here because with whatever grant and stuff she got, it was $200 a semester for her to go to CVCC. It was incredible. And she went and she was like, just taking her gen ed stuff and she hated school. She just hated it. And she was like, I might, maybe I'll be a dental hygienist. Like that kind of sounds okay. But she was like, well, dental, like I have to have really good grades to get accepted to dental hygienist school. I'm not even that passionate about it. And I hate school. And I was like, and so we were having a bunch of conversations because I, at that point was transferring. I had found a passion in graphic design through yearbook my senior year. And I was transferring to that from biblical and theological studies. And my intent was I was going to do my undergrad and then I was going to go get my MDiv, my master's in divinity, and be a youth pastor. That was like, that's my goal. That's my life. That's it. And in that, I was starting to learn more about marketing and design and stuff like that. And I was starting to explore different things my freshman year. And I was learning what I was really passionate about and what I was truly being called to do. And so I'm going through this experience of like, I have a set path where like, I'm really excited about what I'm doing. She's at school and she's dreading it every day. And so we were having conversation. I'm like, well, Liz, like you're 50. what is like genuinely, screw what it's going to pay you. What are you happiest doing? And she's like, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's all I want to do. I just want to raise kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, then why go to school? Like, I was like, you can go work full-time somewhere, get up to be like a manager or something. And between, like, we knew we were going to get married at that point. I was like, between you and I working until we have kids, like, we'll get by and we won't have any student debt on your end. Like, we won't have anything to pay. So why do it? And so she was like, we worked through it over and over. And she finally went to her parents like, look, I'm done with school. She was working at Rita's at the time. Mm-hmm. She was a manager at Rita's. She just went full time. And then the owners of Rita's owned a car dealership here. She did great work. They hired her there full time. And then from there, she went on to be a manager at Francesca's full time until we started having to do like fertility treatments. And that's a whole different story. But then she had to quit her job because she took up too much time. But that's what she did. So she, instead of going to college, she just worked for several years because she knew even if she goes to college, she's going to be stuck in a job she didn't want to do. So she just, originally she took a job and took time off of school because she was like, well, maybe I'll find something I'm passionate about in that time off. And she didn't and never went back. And realistically, like, that's a whole different career path because she had flexible hours. She was making good enough money that she could have lived on her own if, we weren't married. And she was enjoying life outside of work, and that's what was fulfilling her. She was happy with it.
Yeah.
And, like, there's nothing wrong with that because you don't have to go to school. Especially, like, even there's so much YouTube knowledge and experience is valued so much nowadays that, like, I mean, for instance, I own a business, right? If I'm hiring a social media manager, I'm not even going to, I don't care where you went to school, what you went to school for. I want to see what content can you create. What if I ask you certain questions, how do you respond in, like, if I hand you a disc or whatever it may be and I say, what is the marketing plan to push this? What are you able to come up with? That's all I care about because I want you to be functional at your job. I don't care if one person has a marketing degree from Harvard and they have a marketing degree from Harvard and they're a deadbeat and only thing they know how to do is SEO work, then I'm going to hire the person that just graduated high school and grinded it out on TikTok and they know how to they understand SEO because you need to know how to do SEO for your videos to rank, but they also know content creation, how to rank all of that, and they have years of work of experience. That's way more valuable to me than someone from Harvard. Now, that's not true right now. I was
about to say, unfortunately, that's for you.
That's not true in corporate America, but that's getting to be a lot more true in a lot of America. Yeah. Because if you can back up what you're claiming by just tons of work, that's valuable. Whether not everyone's going to see it as valuable, but that's extremely valuable. And what it means is not only like when you graduate with a degree, there's a lot of uncertainty because you haven't done it yet. So you aren't even that self-confident in your ability to do the thing you claim you can do. Versus if you have years of doing it on the side or whatever, and you have years of proving you are who you say you are, you have self-confidence out the wazoo because I'm not walking into a job interview and saying I'm proficient in Excel and really, I mean, I know how to change the colors. I'm saying I'm proficient in Excel because look at all these spreadsheets I've built and I can do this every time for you. Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
Well, I think even in corporate America, which I just came from a year or so ago, like the culture is kind of changing. Like, yes, it's in that setting, it still matters. Like, hey, what are your credentials basically? But also, I think I was looking at people when I was hiring people, like I was looking more of like their portfolio, if you will, like a theoretical one, like you're saying, oh, if you said you were really good at this, can you show me that? Or so I'd encourage everyone to, like, if you, especially in a creative field, but even if you're not, like, business is creative, so let me just say that. But if you're like going into a business situation, like be able to either demonstrate what you're doing or also like you can have a portfolio of business stuff like, hey, here's like a couple of businesses I've thought about and modeled out. Like that's your here's some business plans. Here's what I think. Can I walk you through them? That's a portfolio, whether you believe it or not. Like that's what you should be able to do. I mean, Hunter did not hire me because I had like all these, like, if you hired me from my resume, you were mistaken.
I could not tell you. I don't know what your business, still to this day, I don't know what school you went to, what your degree's in. I couldn't tell you your work history beyond the job you're working when I met you.
Yeah.
I just hired him based on the evidence of work I'd seen with Atlas was it.
Yeah. Well, and also you proposed to me, you're like, hey, here's all this information. What would you do? And
yes, that's true.
And
too.
I came back like 2 or 3 days later, and I had like a 10-step plan to like, and I would say worked out pretty okay so far. So like that, I just encourage.
He's not gonna like
to,
next week.
Oh, no.
But I think also like you, and this can be for, I mean, somebody who's in their 40s doing this, or somebody who's in transition, or somebody who's a young person who hasn't gotten to a career. But like you also don't have to have a dream job to care and be passionate and love your job.
No.
Like you can be working at, I worked at Chick-fil-A, and I know people who are adults and work at Chick-fil-A and they love it. Like you can be working anywhere, and just, I think it's a valuable trait as a person to not rely on your job to make you happy, but to be a person that makes your job something that makes you happy. Like is happy going into your job.
That's what
like you just have to be able to again, like figure out if your job isn't a dream job, if you're just working somewhere that's not at all what you would desire to do all day, like that's okay. My dad used to always say, your job isn't your life, your job funds your life. And I think that's okay to view your job like that, but you also like have to figure out outside of work, again, what's going to fill you up so that you can go into your job, find a way to love it, and maybe actually influence people there. Maybe that's disc golf. Hey, for a lot of people, you feel filled up by going and playing disc golf, or on the weekends going out on a boat and going fishing, or maybe that's your faith in some way. Like you just have to find something that like fills you up to be able to go to a job that isn't an ideal job, but still enjoy it and make it productive.
And also, let me just say this very clear, and this is maybe a polarizing statement. If you cannot find happiness and be a good human at a not dream job, you will never get your dream job.
That's true.
Because you're not going to find happiness in anything that you do.
Every job's going to suck in some way, shape, or form.
Ultimately, as a person, if you are ever relying on anything outside of you to bring you happiness, you're not going to find happiness whenever you get that thing outside of you. You've got there's a lot more that we can go into, but there's just it's so much deeper of finding happiness and contentment outside of what other people are bringing you and what the world is bringing you. Because if you think I'll be so happy once I have this car, eventually you're going to get that car and you're not going to be happy until you get another car. Like it's like the stereotypical thing that everybody says, like, oh, filthy rich people end up being the most depressed. It's because they work so hard to get rich, and then it's not enough for them. And just find a way to not rely on your job or your friends or your significant other to be the thing that makes you happy, because that's an incredible amount of pressure that is unfair for you to put on anyone else for them to be the ones to make you happy.
All those things should contribute to your happiness, because hopefully you're surrounding yourself with the things and people that you love. But yeah, they can only contribute. They can't complete the happiness as well. And that, I mean, with my boys, like what I'm emphasizing is not like, and I'm trying to be very like cognizant of like how I'm vocalizing this to them, is like, I'm not saying, oh, what do you think you want to like go to college for? What do you like? My thing is like, hey, what are the things you're interested in? You know, and like, I'm not putting that pressure. I mean, my oldest is going to be 12. So, I mean, he's not like realistically too far away from like, he's in middle school now.
Yeah.
So he's not too far away from that college year where it's going to be shoved down his throat. Like, you got to figure out what your major is going to be, what college you're going to go to. Like, I'm now trying to set the groundwork for, hey, whether you want to, do college, like while you're in high school, like that's a great idea if you intend on going to college, but what interests you? I don't care if you get out of school and like, if you want to start your own business, or you want to do freelance, or you want to just like explore like what you like for a year or whatever after high school. But like, my thing I'm preaching to them is like, hey, whatever you do, make sure it's something you enjoy, and make sure it's something that brings value to you and others, but you're not going to be a deadbeat either. Like, you got to do something, but just try to find what you're passionate about and then drive.
Yeah. Well, that's like Gary Vee, whether you love him or hate him. I'm a big Gary Vee fan, but
I can't tell how I feel about. Sometimes I love him, and sometimes like that's not quite it. Gary.
One of the big things he always talks about is like, so what he loves and he is passionate about is building businesses and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. Like that's what's fun to him. And so he was saying though, like he works with a lot of like the VaynerMedia. I think people don't sometimes see Gary Vee as just the Instagram personality, and they don't realize like his company's producing commercials for Super Bowls and stuff like that.
He built that company to where it is.
Yeah, like, no, he built it. Period. Yeah. Like he was working for his dad's wine shop and then just started this media company and is now doing commercials for like Nestle and Nike and all this. That's what he does. So he does crazy stuff, but so he's working with a lot of people in corporate America and stuff like that. So he has the backing to say what I'm about to say, but he was basically saying like he has friends on a wide spectrum of earning. And he's basically was saying like people get caught up in, like we were saying, like I need a job that's going to pay me $200,000 a year, and which in Central Virginia is a frick ton of money. And I need a job that's going to pay me X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the other, because then it'll give me financial freedom, and then I'll be happy. And he's like, I have friends who, like, what they're passionate about in life is being at every one of their kids' ball games, being at, you know, being able to take time off to go to the July 4th cookout or whatever. He's like, and they make $40,000 a year, and they're at every one of their kids' ball games, and they're at all their family functions, and they're the happiest people I know. He's like, then I have friends who make a killing, but in doing so, they have to work 60, 70 hours a week, and they miss all their kids' ball games. They miss and they're miserable. And he's like, so you have to find, like we were just saying, you have to find what you're passionate about, and it's okay if it's not something that's going to make you a lot of money. If like,
or any money.
If you're someone who you are passionate about your family and your kids, and that's all you want to do, find a job that just supports that life. And that means find a job that maybe you go into work at 6 a.m. and you get off at 2, so you can make sure even your kids' away games, you have time to drive and get there. And, you know, then you know every afternoon, even during the summer, I can go and take my kids to the lake. I can go and do whatever. Find that job. That job is worth way more than if you find a job that you're working 9 to 6 or 7, and you're making a lot of money, and sure, your kid's life will seem better because sure, they have the new Xbox and whatever, but their life's not better because they don't have you. And that's something that's like, I think it's crucial, and I think it's easy to understand from the outside. But when you're like when you're doing your monthly finances and you're looking at your budget and stuff, and you're, you know, hopefully you're doing a budget first off, you know, it's easy to want to keep up with the Joneses. It's easy to want that next big thing, and it's easy to want to pull up in a brand new car or brand new whatever and impress all your friends when it's like, yeah, but what is that doing with you? Like, are you happy with that, or are you trying to make everyone else happy by who you've become?
A perfect example of this, my brother-in-law, Cody, who passed away about a year and a half ago, he passed away way too early. He was in his early 30s, and from terrible cancer. But I think that he felt fulfilled in life because of what you just said. Whenever him and my sister first got married, he found out that they could buy clearance items from Kmart's that were going out of business, and from Walmart's, just like random things like hair dyes that were for sale for 28 cents a piece, but then he could resell on Amazon for $48 a piece. And so he would just go, he found out that he could go to Kmart, go to their clearance section, scan stuff on the Amazon app, see how much it was going for, and load his trunk up with hair dyes and different kinds of like weird beauty products like that was reselling for 20 times the amount, and ship them out and make a living doing that. So and he realized that meant that he didn't have to go to a desk job every day. So him and my sister decided that they would plan out trips to every Kmart in the country. And for 2 years, they traveled in his Toyota Sierra. No, that's the van. Toyota, one of the sedans, and Solera. And they traveled across the entire U.S. They went to every single state except for Alaska and Hawaii. And because that's what they enjoyed doing. They stayed at KOAs. They went to the Grand Canyon. And then they'd stop at a Kmart near the Grand Canyon to pick up some hair dye to throw in their trunk. And then they would fulfill the orders, send them out, go to their next. Like, that's what they did for 2 years. And then whenever Caitlin got pregnant, then he got a desk job that made it to where right at the time that he got it. I mean, this was just a crazy thing that tells you that life isn't random. As soon as he got a desk job, he got health insurance as well and life insurance, or like provided for him. And then it was a year after he got that job that he got cancer. And if he was still at Amazon, like just doing the Amazon stuff, he wouldn't have necessarily had all the stuff to take care of his family. But yeah, and I mean, he didn't not have his dream job at all. I mean, he like that just sounds really random to most people, but he found a way to fund his life. What's the most important thing to you in your life? Find a job that makes that work. And that job is not always going to be pretty, but the life will be, though.
Yep.
I think we make a noise to end the banter, like we always do. We make a noise of you punching into a job you hate.
All right, here we go. I'll go. I can't go first. I don't know.
All right, I'll go. How's it going, Konner? Hey, Silas.
That's so funny. Didn't even hurt my feelings.
All right, here's mine. Ready? Back to the old grind.
I like the actual punch clock.
I was
trying to think of a job that I would hate. I don't think that I would hate many jobs.
Just pick one, man.
I think that I could convince myself that I liked any job.
If there was a job that had an actual punch clock today,
you have to teach math.
No, I got it. No,
math teacher. You would like that.
No, I would enjoy that. I would figure it. No, it's if I had to just do math.
Second grade.
It's
math.
if I had to be an accountant.
You're an
all right.
Okay.
No, here we go. This is me punching into a job that I hate. Ready? I don't know how any of this stuff works, but they expect me to get it done by the end of the day.
Nice.
I like that. Hey, I am happy. Trevor last week said, "Well, I thought that me and you would get into a heated debate about something, and I was gonna try." And Trevor did say, Konner knows this. He's like, "You guys won't argue. You pretty much agree on about everything." I was like, "Okay." And he's like, he probably won't argue with you the way he argues with me.
Trevor, there's a few people in my life that can push me to that level, and it is basically
Are all of them in this room?
It's basically my close family, Trevor, and Konner in the right mood. Silas just will say something outlandish.
But I don't start it though. Usually it's because you're trying to push me past my breaking point, and it works every time.
There's some days I just want to stir things up. That's fair.
Well,
but no, Trevor. That's how I know I'm really close with someone. Is if
you and Trevor, sometimes you guys just have a crazy miscommunication where both of you are angry, and I don't know how you got. Yeah, you guys both agree.
There's multiple times on Grip Block where we both agree, and we are just like a fraction off. And it just leads us to an argument. And it sounds like people on the outside looking in. I don't know how Trevor feels about it, but that's how I know I'm like, yeah, I'm very tight with that person. Yeah. Because I can look at someone and if I don't know someone and I disagree with them, I'm not going to say a word. Yeah, I will not argue. I will not argue with someone that I think is going to take it like I hate them. Mm-hmm. I will argue with someone that knows I love them and therefore I can push them.
Yeah, usually I don't necessarily disagree on most of the things you say. Usually I disagree with how you say the things, and that's what leads us in arguments.
That's also what gets me going is I know that what I said was right. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows what I said was right, but people will get upset at how I said it, and I'm like, we agree. Yeah. You're just ticked I said it that way. And then that'll get me real heated 9 times out of 10. So if you ever want to push my buttons, come at me like that.
Well, I think that was a really rude way to say that.
Yeah, I think I'm happy because I feel like I'm in the middle because
if I disagree with you, I would tell you.
Well, you do.
We have a close enough relationship. Yeah, we do agree on 99% of things.
But if we disagree, we'll. I think there's a comfort in people where you can kind of push in or lean into hey, no, I really disagree with that. Yeah, so we have that. We haven't had a knockdown, drag out argument. So
I don't think you're the type I would argue with.
Well, I think
just your
I think a lot of
how you diffuse a situation diffuses me.
Yeah.
Trevor doesn't diffuse a situation. That's nothing wrong. Trevor and I diffuse a situation the same way, which is we don't diffuse at all. We just we add.
You're either all in or you're just frustrated and quiet.
Yeah. Well, Trevor's just again. Trevor and I, at least how I view our friendship, is I can say anything to him. Mm-hmm. He can say anything to me. And at the end of the day, I know it wasn't personal. He knows it wasn't personal. And if it gets serious enough, we need 5 minutes to go think through. And whichever one of us was actually in the wrong, we'll come back and be like, hey, man, look, it just got heated. Which has happened.
It's very true.
Multiple times.
It has happened many times.
That's fun. Well, it's all or nothing.
It might not be fun for the people listening, but it's fun for us.
Anytime that Hunter says something that is sometimes he says things that are basically intentional to get me riled up. I'll be like, but, and then sometimes I'll just feel Trevor put his hand on my leg and just be like.
What gets me riled up is like how much of your thigh I can see right now.
Yeah.
That's a whole different riled up.
That's intentional.
And that's for the banter after dark.